Welcome to the Avail Leadership Podcast, where our goal is to help you take your leadership to the next level. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're doing something different and unique. We're doing a crossover podcast between Avail Leadership Podcast and the Inspire Collective Podcast. So this one recording is going to two different podcasts. Lean in as I talk with Chris Bowen, host of the Inspire Collective Podcast, and we discuss some of the similarities and some of the differences and the overall impact of both Avail and Inspire. All I can say is it's going to be a fun ride. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Avail Leadership Podcast. My name is Virgil Sierra, but this is not just the Avail Leadership Podcast. It is also
the Inspire Collective Podcast. And I'm Chris Bowen, and I'm excited, Mr. Virgil, to be able to do this with you today. And we're joining this thing together and tell a little bit of the same things and the differences that we have in common with our podcast.
I love this, Chris. One of the things I love is I love what we get to do. I mean, first of all, there's a lot of things that you and I have in common. And I know this because we've done podcasts together. Right. I had a chance to interview on the Avail Leadership Podcast, but we have a lot of things in common, including we love God. Mm-hmm. We love our families.
Right.
We love church. We love leadership.
Yes.
But we also like the fact that we can influence anywhere and everywhere. We're going to talk a little bit about that, right? Especially in the marketplace, in the business world. But I love that we get to do something like this, to host the podcast. We get to talk to amazing guests. It really is. I mean, it's a lot funner than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I never dreamed of being a podcast host, but I have had an amazing journey over the last couple of months. It has been so fun. And again, like you said, connecting with people literally around the country, it's been a lot of fun. And just being able to have an influence. And that's what this is all about on both sides with Avail and the Inspire Collective as well. Both of these are all about influence and connecting people. And that's what we're truly doing through the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. So here's what I think would be cool, especially because we're kind of cross-pollinating. We're crossing over into each other's podcasts here, and we're part of the same family. Now, I would love for you to share a little bit about the heart of the Inspire Collective podcast, and then after that, I'll share a little bit about Avail.
Sure. Well, the Inspire Collective, of course, brand new. It's only been out for a month. Very excited to be able to interview some great men and women. And I'm really excited. Just got this in the mail. Nobody has seen this yet. I got the first copy. So it's actually out. And so this is the Inspire magazine that goes along with the podcast. And so what we do is we take the church piece that you guys do so well in Avail, and we look now into the marketplace. So we're talking about business people in church, but taking it out of the church and now taking it into their businesses. So these are entrepreneurs and business-minded people, and we'll interview some amazing people like Mike Kai, where we talked about the spirit of excellence. We'll talk about technology, and man, have I learned so much through the business piece of technology since I've started doing the podcast. So what we do is we actually take it now into the marketplace, and we talk about the business piece, because you know what? It's great if you have it all in the church, but we also need to be able to take it beyond the walls of the church and now get it out into the marketplace. So we're dealing with entrepreneurs, people with business minds. So it's a lot of fun because that's my heartbeat of really helping people become entrepreneurs early in life and then to see where it goes. So that's a little bit about what we're doing here at the Inspire Collective. And how about for Avail? Tell us how we cross-pollinate with this. It's kind of like two apple trees today. You know, one can't do anything without the other. So we're doing that today. So tell me about Avail.
Yeah, well, so the Avail Leadership Podcast, we've been going actually since 2020. In the middle of this whole global pandemic, the Lord put this vision in the heart of our leaders here, in Avail. So really, Avail, the heart behind Avail is to equip and challenge and empower leaders in the church, right? Wow. To really to have conversations on this podcast with global impacting leaders, pastors, Christian authors that are really going to equip ministry leaders and church leaders to take church and ministry to the next level, right? We call Avail, we call it the art of leadership. Obviously, this can spill into different areas of society, but we do have a strong focus for ministry and the church. And as a pastor myself, as a lead pastor, I pastor a church called Vertical Church here, Iglesia Vertical in South Florida, where we are one church, two languages. But it really is, Avail really is just a place where all that meets. church, leadership, influence, excellence. And man, I love it. We've had some amazing podcast guests throughout this last practically almost a year now. And we have some great ones that are in the works as well. And I love it. We can, sometimes the conversations can be heavy on kind of relational leadership.
Right.
Then it can be kind of organizational leadership. And then it can go, it can tap a little bit into, how do we impact outside as well? But really the heart is just calling the leaders, the champion and the leader inside of a lot of ministry leaders and church leaders. So it's fun. It's fun to do this and see how the Lord can use a conversation. We also have, you had the Inspire, we have the Avail journal as well. An amazing journal, great quality, just like the Inspire magazine, and another resource that people can use to just grow and get great content as leaders.
Yeah, it's awesome to be able to think about, again, this coming together with the Avail and the Inspire Collective, simply because you're still pastoring. I pastored for 27 years, and now I'm into the entrepreneurial part. I'm into the business end of it, where I pastored 27 years, absolutely loved it. But now God took me out of pastoring, and I'm over several churches and working with businesses more now than ever, in consulting and coaching. And so it's amazing that we have two great amenities here that are coming together. And so whether you're in the church or whether you're in the business world, it looks like we're covering both pieces. So that's exciting. And it sounds to me like that Virgil is doing his heart and Chris is doing his heart. And so today it's really fun to be able to talk about our different podcasts, how they're similar, but how they're also totally different.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember when I interviewed you on our Avail Leadership podcast, right, one of the things that I remember really came out is your heart and your passion for what you did when you were the senior pastor of the church that you were pastoring, but how you're really enjoying this season now in the business and kind of entrepreneurial side of things. I love that. I think that there's something so important, Chris, about that. And there's so many people in our church, so many believers that need to be empowered and equipped in this way to stop thinking that ministry only happens within the context of a church, or thinking that true impact or influence can only happen in the context of, being in vocational ministry. That's not true.
Right. And with the Inspire Collective, what we're really trying to encourage is not just people already in the marketplace with entrepreneurship mind, but also for pastors and leaders in the church, that too many times, if they're great pastors, sometimes they don't have that entrepreneurial or that business mind. And so what we're seeing is that we're trying to connect those two to say, you may be able to preach and it may have all those elements right, but we also have to have that business piece, because you know what? It's great at the end of the day that you have a great service, but there's a lot of things behind the veil that you have to do business wise. And so we're really encouraging and educating people that we've got to make sure that we're getting the business piece along with the spiritual piece. So again, we're that business piece, you're that spiritual piece, and I think they need both of us. I think they need to tune into Avail Leadership, and they need to tune into the Inspire Collective, because it'll make it actually makes one whole, where separately we're dealing with church and businesses.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great great illustration. It really is a kind of a puzzle piece. We obviously have many things in common on Avail Leadership and Inspire Collective. For example, faith. Faith is a big part of what we're doing on both sides of things. Leadership, right? Leadership, whether it's leadership from the ministry perspective, spiritual side of things, but also leadership in the administrative and organizational perspective, in the business and entrepreneur, right? Influence. That's a big word in leadership and everything that we're talking about. You mentioned something also like quality care, right? That's something that should be on both sides of the equation.
Absolutely. We got to have quality care, because it's how good we do church, and as well, how good we carry ourselves outside in the business world as well. And a couple other things that I can think of there that we have in common, and I think that all of our viewers would agree with this, is success. I think that in the church world and in the business world, we're looking for success. Now, I love the stats. I'm a stat man, and we realize for every success that we have, we typically have 7 failures, which means we don't really fail. We just learn different ways that we can't do it. But we fail forward. So if we fall down 7 times, we get up 8 times. So I think success is big with that, and the spirit of excellence. When I look at the Avail magazine, and I can't wait to get those in. My mother's 87, and I have to wait till she gets done reading it, and she reads every single word because it's done in such a spirit of excellence. It's amazing. And I was super excited yesterday that even before they got it, that I received this, and I was going through, and I'm already reading that, and my mother tried to take it. I'm like, no, not yet. I've got to do some work with this and see what all it's about. But I think those things are done in excellence. And I think we see the quality of the people that we're interviewing and the quality of service that they're offering. That's huge. And that's what's making this so successful today.
I agree. I think for anybody who listens to the Avail Leadership podcast, you're definitely you're gonna want to check out the Inspire Collective podcast with Chris Bowen. But you're probably also going to want to share it with some of the people on your staff, on your team, with some of the people in your church, in your community that maybe does have just an entrepreneurial spirit, just a knack for business and marketplace, and even somebody who's maybe not so committed to church or to God, but maybe through a resource like the Inspire Collective that can draw them closer to God, even in the sense of what their world is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so since you gave me a plug, I think also the Inspire Collective should also be attached to the Avail Leadership, where they're getting that spiritual food with, of course, with nobody else with Virgil Sierra. And so, you know what? It's a lot of fun because I feel like for so long the church has been divided. It's my church and it's one organization or another. And we're showing 2 different amenities that really do. And you said earlier about a puzzle coming together. And you know what? Sometimes when you look at a puzzle, you pick a piece out and you're like, well, it doesn't fit here. And you lay it to the side. It doesn't mean it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit at that particular time. Right. And so now is the time because, Inspire Collective has been way behind. We're a year behind Avail, but it wasn't time for that piece to come up. But now we're at that time that we're joining together. And it feels like 2 pastors with 2 babies and going in the same direction. So it's exciting to do this with you and just to really be able to refer each other and say, you know what, if you're listening to Inspire Collective, you've got to tune into the Avail Leadership because both of them, I feel like we're missing something if we don't connect the pieces and connect the dots here.
Definitely. I think we talked a little bit about some of the similarities and how obviously there's a lot that unites us. But if we're honest, there's also some differences. And I'll just mention maybe from my perspective, and I know that you'll be able to speak a little bit on the Inspire side. Obviously, we've been mentioning a little bit how Avail might focus a little bit more on leadership within the church, and even tap a little bit more into spiritual leadership and spiritual subjects and topics with regards to the Bible, or regards to pastoring a church or leading a ministry. And I think it's really cool because somebody who's not in church or in ministry can still learn from the things that we're talking about in a lot of the Avail Leadership podcasts. But I'm sure the same thing happens on the other side of the coin.
Absolutely. There are differences. And of course, not that we're not the spiritual piece. A lot of times people feel like, well, the Inspire is just the Inspire business. But we do have that spiritual background. Yeah. We believe in the spiritual piece. But we focus more on the business and the entrepreneurial part of how we actually are helping people within our congregation build businesses and build them successful and to make them as an example. When we start looking at businesses today, you can look at companies like Chick-fil-A that have been leading in customer service. We can pull out a lot of companies like that. And a lot of companies, unfortunately, don't have a spiritual backing. And so what we want to do is we want to take that spiritual backing, but yet still understand that there's a business and an entrepreneurial place as well. So we have the marketplace lingo where you guys would have more of the church lingo. Yes. And it's really important that we understand that that one's not more spiritual than the other, but yet we're two different amenities going two different directions to reach two different crowds. So both pieces are very important. So I love the way you said, Virgil, that it's not it's not all glimmer and glitter and glamour. That we do have differences in our podcast of what we're doing. So again, we're trying to reach that business, the entrepreneurship, where you're raising up leaders in the spiritual realm.
Yeah. I think it's strategic. I think it's timely. I think that such a time as this, a podcast like Inspire Collective that's going to put tools and resources in the hands of so many people who might not view themselves as as leaders, might not initially view themselves as people who are truly making an impact, but I think empowering them with all the resources, connecting them with amazing leaders that I know are coming onto the Inspire Collective podcast. I know that's going to add great value to so many people, and I've seen it. Since we're a little bit ahead, about a year ahead, I can see how so many people have been blessed and encouraged by the conversations, and I think let's talk a little bit about what we enjoy about hosting a podcast. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges, which we were talking about, some of the technical issues, right? But so let's talk about some of the things that we enjoy. What would you say, Chris, are, a couple things that you enjoy about being the host for the Inspire Collective?
I think I'm all about connecting with people. And I think that's the biggest part for me right now is I am getting to interview some of those amazing leaders in the world. And to be quite honest with you, one of the things that was really scary is I was interviewing Mike Matthews last week, and he is a technology guru from ORU, the vice president of technology there. And I thought, what am I going to ask this man? I had a hard time hooking up my mic, and he broke it down so simple. And I can't wait for people to hear the interview, because he was talking about technology was in Genesis 1 of when God took the sand and he broke all that thing down and started talking about technology. And he was talking about streams in the Bible where it's talking about streams. And he said, it's talking about streaming globally. And so those kind of things I think are the most impactful for me. Getting into the government with Kim Schofield and what she does as a representative. And so talking to these business people, that's my heartbeat again, because I love the entrepreneurship and that business piece, because I feel like for so long the church has been, we've been really spiritual, but we haven't really educated people on owning your own and having a business. And it's not to make us rich, it's so that we can fund kingdom. So I think the greatest part for me and the funnest part is to really go in with no expectations and hear the heart of these business people and to grow with them. Another great one was, of course, the Faithful app with Marissa Bell. I was just blown away, and I joined that thing, and every day my phone alerts, and I'm like, had I not had this podcast, I would maybe have never heard of that. And if we haven't opened the Inspire Collective, maybe other viewers would have never heard. But because of that, my spiritual life is even growing, and it's business, but yet my spiritual life is growing. So on your side, what would you say is some of the, plus now you're way ahead of me, you're a year ahead of me. What would you say is some of the exciting things that you have found on the Avail leadership side?
Well, I would say first, I would say just on a personal level, this wasn't something that I was looking for. It wasn't something that I was like, okay, I got to find I'll be a host. I think God has an amazing way of his timing, right? His Kairos timing, right? So I would say that for me, seeing so many of my passions align. In other words, I said a little earlier, I'm passionate about the church. I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about equipping others, right? And one other thing that I'm really passionate about is about doing all of those in both languages, en español, y también en inglés, and also in English, right? And so this Avail Leadership Podcast has really been a kind of a God timing thing for me to really add value to people. I would say another thing that I love about it is kind of in line with what you were saying, just the diversity of guests. I've been able to talk to amazing guests, some pastors, some authors, some ministry leaders. But they're different. Some men, some women, some Americans, some global and international. And it's been so neat to be able to see that within the diversity, there's so much common ground in the gospel, common ground in the mission, as believers. And then one more thing I'll add is just learning. Some people might think, as a podcast host, you must know. No, I'm sitting here listening, kind of like you were listening, taking it in, and I'm like, that's really good. I'm going to put that in my next sermon, right? Or, that's really good. I'm going to share that with my staff later today. And so I feel like just as much as I may be giving, so to speak, I'm receiving so much, and I'm taking so much in. So this is really fun, Chris.
Yeah, we've got a great team at both the Avail Leadership and the Inspire Collective, and we share some of that team, and it's really a lot of fun because they'll send me something that they'll say, okay, I need you to do this, and I'm like, I have no idea. And I said, wait a minute. Virgil, he actually interviewed me on 5 Star a couple months ago. Do you want me to do it like he did me? And so I have a cheat sheet. I have a great role model that I can actually view it from, because everything that they say, okay, So like Virgil did. So we're doing this great introductory. We're doing this amazing introductory. We're doing 7 weeks Thursday nights, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be 7 weeks every Thursday night. We're going to have different hosts, and they're like, okay, this is what I need you to do. And I said, hey, I was on Avail the other night. They were doing the financial freedom stuff. I was there. So that's what we're going to mimic. So I've had a great cheat sheet in Avail to be able to mimic some of this stuff and say, wow, because you guys do it in excellence in Avail. And I am determined that I'm going to follow the pursuit, and we're going to make sure that the Inspire Collective is up there with you guys, because Mike Kai taught us how to do things in 5-star. And of course, Dr. Sam Chan taught us how to do things by holding each other's ladder. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to again, cross-pollinate those things. And I appreciate what you've taught me, even though you didn't know you were teaching me. And I didn't know I was being taught in the interview, but I learned a lot from that. So it's amazing how God puts things together.
That's so true. I love that. Hey, if you know, right now, if you haven't figured it out, this is not just one podcast. This is actually 2 podcasts. We're recording one podcast. I'm Virgil Sierra from the Avail Leadership Podcast, and I am here with
Chris Bowen with the Inspire Collective podcast.
Hey, Chris, we were talking a little bit about some of the things that maybe are challenging or that we didn't know about podcasting before podcasting. Does anything come to your mind that you want to mention?
Well, we don't have a lot of time. I can tell you so much. I'm telling you what, it is amazing because I have never done this. And when Martine said, hey, I want you to be the host of this, I'm like, sure. Yeah, I'm always up for a challenge. I had no idea what kind of a challenge, because I'm telling you, technology has always been fearful. And I even wondered at times if maybe that's why I got out of pastoring when I did. Technology became such a thing. And I thought, well, maybe God was moving me out because I wasn't ready. And I'm also a professor at a university. And so everything went to online, which I've done online classes, but we went to virtual classes. And I said, you know what? I'm just done with that. And it was like something in me like, no, you're not going to give up. I'm 56 years old. I refuse to give up at 56. I'm going to fight. And so whenever they gave me this, and the first couple of days, they probably thought I was crazy. I'm like, guys, I don't know. They're like, oh, just go to and click on this. I'm like, okay, I'll click on that, but tell me how to get to that. So it was very difficult for me. And even today, hooking up my microphone, it seems crazy, but I'm like, okay, guys, I plugged it in. Now what do I do? Well, you've got to go to settings. I didn't know that. So those have been the challenges for me, is just really of staying current and making sure that we're current. And I think that's what we have to do, because after podcasts, what is there going to be? There's going to be something else. And I'm one of those, I fight age every single day. I go to the gym every day. I try to keep my mind alert. I read every day. And so I think the challenge for me for podcasting is just really learning. But again, having that example, I like to be able to see it. And I've seen that through Avail. So with a lot of that, I just click on Avail. I watch a little bit of what's happening. So go, this is how I'm going to do it. So the challenge for me has been the technology piece, but I am loving it because I'm a lifetime learner. So I'm learning something new. It's taking me out of my element.
That's so cool. That's great.
I'm sure you probably don't have any challenges, but nevertheless, try to find something for me, will you?
Well, you know, I think as you go, it's kind of like as your organization grows or as your church grows, the challenges on the front end, you start ironing those out, and then there's different or new challenges along the way. But I will agree that when I first started to do the Avail Leadership podcast, I would forget little things. Like, for example, you know, a lot of times I'm on my computer, right? And I'm putting it all together, and I forgot to connect the power. And I'm in the middle of the interview, and my battery on my computer is saying 7% type thing. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And I'm like, nobody can help me. How do, you know, and anyway, little things like that. And I'll say, I guess there's a lot that has to happen prior to and pre and post recording, right? Because most people just think, oh, recording the podcast. Yeah, but there's a lot that has to happen in the preparation aspect. You're going to, especially when you're, interviewing guests that you don't know most of the time, you're meeting them. So everything on the front end, and then everything that happens on the back end. But you said it, we have an amazing team that is helping us on both Avail and Inspire. And we have a shared team of people who are really, hey, shout out to everybody who works on the pre-side and on the post-production side.
Man, when they first told me, Virgil, that I had to go in and mix the videos and stuff, I'm like, I don't know what that means. How do I mix a video? And then they said you gotta do your intros and outros and send them over to Trello. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this stuff. What do you mean? And I thought, can't I just email them the way I've always been? They're like, nope, you've got to learn this. And so, a couple of times and I got it. But man, it really got me out of my element. And that's the fun side on the Inspire Collective piece, is that we have so many viewers that are listening, and they're like, well, it's a lot of technology. technology, and a lot of stuff in our Inspire magazine is about the technology piece. But I'm telling you, those that we have interviewed, they have broke it down so gently. And the same way with our team. They have been so kind to me. This old man they've been kind to say, okay, you just click on this, you click on that. And so I think that it's a real learning tool. And when we stop learning, I think we're done. And so I think this piece is really that piece that really helps people to say, stay connected, stay moving. And again, shout out to the team. They're amazing. Now, they may not say I'm amazing. They may say, oh God, here comes another text from Chris. But anyway, they've never shown that, even though they may think it. So maybe they'll send me a text when they hear this and say, no, not at all. I'm not expecting that. But anyway, that'd be nice to receive.
Well, this is my expectation. I think you're a pretty, I know you're a pretty sharp guy, from all of your experience and all your leadership, how the Lord has gifted you. That's been evident to me as I've interacted with you. So I have a feeling, even though you feel this way now, a little bit ahead, you're going to have some people calling you and saying, hey, can you teach me? Can you coach me on how to become a podcast host? I think that's going to happen. I have a curious question here for you, Chris. Anybody in your family or close friends kind of question like, what? You're going to be a podcast host? What have the people around you thought about that have heard about you being the Inspire podcast host? What have they thought?
It's really fun because a lot of people are like, yeah, you're good for that. You would be really good for that job, because I've done a lot of television, and the camera doesn't scare me, doesn't terrify me or anything. And so that comes natural. But whenever you start doing this, it's the technology piece that really scares me, because, and the very first thing that they told me is, okay, you're going to go on this site with the Squadcast, and this is how it's going to happen. I'm like, okay, who's going to be there to manage it? And they're like, you're going to manage. I'm like, wait a minute, no. When Virgil, when he interviewed me, there was somebody to help him with that piece. I see now they put you on Squadcast, and so now we're kind of doing it ourselves. So yeah, but people have really encouraged me and said, you can do this. And again, some of the team that I've known the team for years, and they're like, yeah, this is going to be great. And I'm sitting there saying, this is really, I can tell you this on the Avail leadership side, this has helped my spiritual life more than anything. I have prayed a lot to say, let me make sure that I'm doing this effectively and where it's really touching and influencing people. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's great, Chris. Maybe as we're kind of wrapping the conversation up, I think we're doing our job well on this crossover podcast that's going to kind of go on both the Avail Leadership Podcast and the Inspire Collective Podcast. Here's a question, and I'll ask it to you, and then maybe I'll share a little bit after. What is your hope for people to really to receive and get? So as somebody who in the future says, I'm going to connect to the Inspire Collective Podcast, I'm going to listen, I'm going to lean in. What are some of the outcomes and prayers and hopes that you have for those people?
That's a great question, Virgil. And I think my answer is really simple, that I want people to get it, because I have taught for years, even when I pastored for 9 years, I had a class for entrepreneurship and business-minded people. The class ran about 300 every single 6 weeks. We had every 6 weeks. But only 4 people out of that become entrepreneurs in 9 years. It was quite disappointing. But I look back and I realized that had we not had that, those people may not be entrepreneurs today as well. My hope and desire is with the Inspire Collective that somebody will say, you know what, I'm going to take this challenge and I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something that I've always wanted to do. The Inspire Collective is about living your dream. It's about really going after your dreams to reach your destiny. Only 5% of Americans today actually fulfill their dream. The wealthiest place in the world is the cemetery, because people die with dreams. And so Inspire Collective is just trying to say, go for it. Go out there. Don't be crazy, but do what you're passionate about doing. And in our interview, we talked about Paul, the Apostle Paul, and how he said, this one thing that I do, my job every day, whether it be the podcast, whether it be in coaching or counseling or consulting, I only take today what I feel like is really destined for me to have, because I do not want to get up every morning and say, oh my gosh, I've got an interview today with Virgil and I don't know how this podcast is going to go. When I wake up, I'm excited that I'm going to meet with Dr. Matthews or Dr. Chand or Martine, and we're going to have conversation. So my thing is, I want people to grab a hold of this and say, I want to be a better person. I want a piece of the pie. I want to go after my dreams, so that when I get up in the morning time, it's not like going to work. It's like, wow, another day. I feel really kind of odd, I guess, because I don't feel like I've ever worked in my life. When I pastored, I loved it. When I was, my businesses, I love doing what I do. And when I don't like it anymore, I quit because I feel like life is too short. So at the Inspire Collective, we're trying to say, look out there, do your dream, do it in excellence, and live your best life. That's what I think it's all about.
I love that. I think that's a great vision. I think that in this season more than ever, the people that love God, but have a heart, just have a passion and a knack and a natural ability to come up with ideas, to produce, to start businesses. I think empowering them the way that you guys are doing on the Inspire Collective is going to be of great value. Thinking a little bit on the Avail side, I would say for me, when I think of some of the outcomes and some of the things that I really hope for the people that connect with the Avail Leadership podcast, first of all, that ministry leaders and pastors would know that they're not alone. Because sometimes it feels like you're the only one going through a situation, but it just helps to know, man, I'm not alone. Somebody's been through this, man, that was actually worse than my, like leaning in together. Also that Avail Leadership would become kind of a go-to resource for ministry leaders who want to grow, who are not content with status quo, who want to go and make a difference, make an impact. And then I would say, part of our tagline, if you will, is the art, the art of leadership, right? Helping people in the art of leadership, helping people really take steps to think in new ways, to grow in new ways, and specifically in the kingdom, and in the context of, as a church, we don't want to be irrelevant. We want to be relevant. We want to impact lives and families, real families, real people. And I think that's a great responsibility that we carry as ministry leaders.
Yeah. And so we have, on both sides, such great founders. Our founders, of course, is Martijn van Tilburg, Sam Chan, and Mike Kai, and just incredible leaders that have exemplified that for decades. And so there's so much on this side. And the thing that I love about this, and I also see the same thing in Avail, is that they give so much. Just like now, the Inspire magazine is out. And the last I got on it is it's a free subscription for an entire year. So for a year, it's absolutely free. And so that's amazing. And of course, if they haven't signed up, can we do an info commercial? Inspirecollective.com. Go there and sign up, and you can get a free magazine. And if it's just one article in there that will inspire you to live your dream or make you a better person. So again, our founders are those that are giving all the time. Sam has given, everybody knows this, Sam's given his program away. Whatever you can afford, just do this. Whatever you name your price. Who does that? At Martijn with the magazine, we're going to give it away for an entire year. Tell everybody they can have it for free, and we'll pay for the cost of the magazine. So they're givers, and so I love that, because I think that's a great pursuit. When God is blessed, we give back. And so the Inspire Collective, go to inspirecollective.com. They can get a hold of that magazine. They can go to our podcast. It's going to be an exciting time. We air on Wednesdays, and so it's an exciting time for our viewers.
That's great. And on the same note, I'll say, hey, if you can get one magazine, a free annual subscription for one magazine, how about getting a free annual subscription for two? If you haven't done so, you can get the free annual subscription of the Avail Journal, right? The Avail magazine as well. Hey, this is a gift we're giving you. If you haven't opted in, do it. What's holding you back? You get two amazing quality resources. These are so good and they're so nice that you literally don't want to throw them away. You'd rather give it to somebody before, tossing it, because it really is awesome. And like Chris, just like you said, man, it could be one article. It could be one, testimonial. It could be one, online event that you find out about and you say, I'm going to go try it, and just opens the door to some amazing next steps in your walk, in your leadership, in your journey. This is awesome, Chris. I'm pumped, man. I'm rooting for the Inspire Collective podcast. Yes. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this next season through the Inspire Collective. I can't wait to see all the things the Lord's going to unravel.
Yeah, and we're excited to follow the Avail leadership, because it's been you guys that have set the forerunner for us to model and to go out. Hold up your magazine. I know somebody's going to actually actually see this. They're not going to just hear some podcasts. Show our magazines. We're excited about these magazines. And so this is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. So I am really going to enjoy to continue to learn from you. I'm a part of Avail. I want to remain a part of Avail because that's the spiritual piece that really, really, as a pastor, I went through some of those times. I remember 1999, I had a major breakdown before I built an $8 million structure. I was afraid, what if I build and they don't come? What if I build and I'm stuck with this mortgage? And I was able to leave that building with just a few $100,000 of being totally debt-free when I left there as founding pastor. And so the Avail piece has had a really big impact in my life spiritually. And you guys are doing a great job in Avail. And we over at the Inspire Collective tip our hats and say thank you for leading the way. Keep paving the way so that you guys are moving the rocks and the stones out of the way, make it a little bit smoother for us. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that as well. And it is an honor to work with people that you respect, to work with people that you care about, and to work with people who care about you. And so I do, man, I ask the Lord, keep pushing what you're doing. Like, keep flowing. If you're not in it, I don't want to be in it. But if you're in it, I want to be in it. And it seems to me like the Lord is in the Avail Leadership Podcast and everything we're doing with the Avail Journal. And the Lord is in the Inspire Collective and everything that's happening with the Inspire magazine. Chris, super proud of you, super encouraged by you as well.
Thank you, sir.
I think that despite how much you've been able to accomplish in so many ways, I believe that there's more. I believe the Lord is going to be doing so much more, and even new things that you never expected before in new ways. So we're proud of you guys. We're rooting you on.
Thank you.
And excited to be running on this journey with you.
Absolutely. And don't be surprised one day that you look up in your congregation and you see the Inspire Collective on the front row, encouraging and pushing you on as well. I've heard so many times, you've got to go to his church. You've got to go to his church. So we're excited about that. So thank you again, Virgil, for leading the way and for all that you guys have done. And again, I just want to tip our hats to our great staffs on both sides because, they make it all happen. We push some buttons, they put it together, they make us sound good, they take things out that need to be out, they edit, they do those things. So we got a great team. So I look forward to the next Avail podcast.
Yes, so good. Hey, everybody. Thanks for leaning in with us today on the Avail podcast, also on the Inspire Collective podcast. This has not been the same. This has been a different format. If this is the first one you're listening to, just know that you've just been introduced to two podcasts, the Avail Leadership Podcast and also the Inspire Collective Podcast. So we're so thankful for for listening to us, for your presence, for tuning in. Maybe you're checking out our YouTube videos as well. Thank you so much for connecting with us. And we hope to have you next time here on the Avail Leadership Podcast and also
the Inspire Collective Podcast.
See you all next time.
Bye-bye.
We hope you've been blessed by this conversation with Chris Bowen, host of the Inspire Collective podcast. Remember, you can check them out at inspirecollective.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. And make sure to claim your free annual subscription of the Avail Journal at availjournal.com. As always, I'm your Avail Leadership host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the Avail Leadership Podcast.